Good evening. Welcome to Stockton University, and welcome to those of you who are watching online. I'm John Frugen, Director of the William J. Hughes Center for Public Policy here at Stockton. The Hughes Center and the Press of Atlantic City are sponsoring tonight's debate for the 2nd Congressional District. This forum is being streamed live on the Hughes Center and the Press's websites, so please no photography, no recording of any kind by the audience. Video recording of this debate will be posted on the Hughes Center website. Our questions tonight will be posed by the panelists, Nicholas Huba, news editor of the Press, and Clyde Hughes, editor of FrontrunnerNewJersey.com. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the questions, and I will allow short follow-up responses between them as appropriate, but we're going to try to get in as many issues as possible before we hear 1 minute closing statements. Candidates, if you look over here, you'll see Alyssa Maurice of the Hughes Center keeping time. She will signal you when 15 seconds are left and when time is up, and I'll politely remind you. In the spirit of civil political discourse embodied by our center's namesake, Ambassador Bill Hughes, we ask the audience to allow the candidates to make their cases without interruption. So please refrain from any comments, applause, booing, or any kinds of noise during the debate. And please, everyone, silence your cell phones. And here are the candidates. To your right is Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew. And to your left is Democratic challenger Tim Alexander. And that's the last applause we'll hear for an hour. First question will go to Mr. Alexander.
Mr. Alexander, developing renewable energy is a critical way to address climate change. New Jersey is investing in wind turbine energy as a major component, but there has been significant local opposition to offshore wind farms. How do you balance these competing interests, and where do you stand on the issue?
And before I start, I want to thank the Stockton University for organizing this debate, and of course the moderators and the moderator and the panel. I really appreciate putting this together, and Mr. Van Drew for participating. That being said, with respect to the question, I believe that we have to invest in wind energy, alternative energy from fossil fuel. As I have traveled and crisscrossed this district, I've heard from numerous people on this issue. And one of the missing pieces to me, my understanding of it, is getting the parties together to a table to discuss how we can proceed that is going to be most favorable for everyone. Yes, we must get it done, and I'm not only in favor of getting that done, but I'm also in favor in investing in companies that are willing to build and manufacture those devices. And incidentally, one of the biggest growth industries and jobs in the industry sector is wind turbine technicians. So there's a win-win all the way around. I'm 100% in favor of it, but we have to talk to our communities to make it work.
Mr. Van Drew.
Renewable energies are important, but it's also important that we don't hurt the people that live here and work here. The fishing industry is critical to our area. It varies from being the 2nd largest to the 3rd largest industry on the East Coast and throughout the country, and the bottom line is they are opposed. It hurts them. Many environmentalists also are opposed. There's something called the cold pool, which is on the floor of the ocean, which is some of the most diverse and environmentally sensitive areas anywhere in the world. It has potential harm to hurt them. The turbines themselves are 3 times the height of the Statue of Liberty. They're 1,000 feet tall without the blades. So they're going to hurt the environment. They're going to hurt the fishing industry. They are going to create problems for navigation. They are going to hurt also our recreational industry and our tourism industry because some of them are going to be as close as 9 miles. The way to go with renewables is everything together.
Okay,
I wish
thank
I had more time. By the way, for those of you that know me, this is going to be the hardest thing in the world. I can't do anything in 60 seconds.
Thank you. Mr. Huber, this question goes to Mr. Van Drew first.
Mr. Van Drew, would you explain why you voted against certifying the 2020 presidential election results, and do you believe or not believe that Joe Biden is a legitimate president?
I sure wish he wasn't our president. I really do. In 2 years, we've had more problems than you could ever imagine could happen. The gas prices, the inflation, the increase to crime, that's 40%. What's happened to our borders and the illegals that are coming in, over 100 people on the terrorist watch list. So I don't know, you can say he's legitimate or you can say he's not, but I'll tell you one thing I am sure, he is the worst president we've had since the Civil War. And as far as why I brought up, the certifying, because it was important. All throughout this country, people received multiple ballots. People that were passed away received ballots. People who lived in other states and other counties received ballots. There were issues, and I thought that had to be brought to light. And finally, that's not a unique thing to me or a unique thing to Republicans. In every single Republican president who was elected, there were Democrats that came forward and didn't certify.
As a follow-up, as the January 6th committee wraps up,
Is this for me?
Yes, as a follow-up to the first question. As the January 6th committee wraps up with all that you know now, would you vote the same way again?
The January 6th committee has been an abomination. The January 6th committee was supposed to be bipartisan. Bipartisan means that you would elect half of the people that would be appointed from the Republican side, and the Republican leader would name them, half from the Democrat side, and the Democratic leader would name them. They were all named by the Democratic leader. The two Republicans who are supposedly on, both of them are not going to be in the House next year, and both of them have expressed their extreme distaste both for the president and for Republicanism. So the bottom line is there's nothing bipartisan. We need, if we're going to do it, a true bipartisan committee where there's an intellectual and good discussion of the real issue at hand.
Mr. Alexander, we have a question for you, but we'll give you a little time to respond generally as well.
Sure. So I can respond to this?
Go ahead,
Yes, thank
Mr.
you.
Huber.
Mr. Alexander, some in your party claim we are in danger of losing our democracy. Are those really the stakes?
Can I just ask for clarity? Am I responding to Mr. Van Drew, or am I giving him
You
a
are
question?
going to respond to Mr. Huber's question, but we're going to give you time to also respond.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Alexander, some of your party claim that we are in danger of losing our democracy. Are those really the stakes, or is it just partisan hyperbole designed to rally the base?
Well, no, it's not designed to rally the base. It's the absolute truth. And this issue isn't about Democrat versus Republican. I have many Republican friends. I was a police officer for 27 years, and I have many shared ideas. This is about democracy versus MAGA, and that MAGA wants to destroy our democracy without purpose, without a mission, just tear it down. And when you hear the rhetoric about the election being stolen and the bipartisan committee not being bipartisan because the two Republicans participating are not MAGA Republicans, that is why we have this urgent need to elect Democrats to preserve the House so that we can preserve our country. And reality here is the MAGA mission has already dealt us a severe blow with respect to the Dobbs decision that has torn a rip in the fabric of the Constitution. So with that being said, I wholeheartedly believe that it's not rhetoric. It's absolutely true that MAGAs will destroy our democracy.
And please take a few moments to respond generally, if you'd like, to Mr. Van Drew's response.
Sure. So, and I'll continue on the thought that the reality here, folks, is that if we don't vote, if we don't participate in this process, if we don't work to get Democrats and independents and Republicans, quite frankly, out to the polls to vote for people who are interested in preserving our democracy and protecting our Constitution and having equality for every single person in this country without fault, then we are in deep trouble. And this is not hyperbole. It is not rhetoric to fire up the base. It's fact. And thank you for that extra time.
Mr. Van Drood, would you like any 30 seconds to respond?
Sure. Let me just say we're at the precipice. We're on the edge of whether we're going to save America or not. It's not just the crime in the cities. It's not just the debacle in Afghanistan. It's not just what's happening at our borders and the people from the terrorist watch list that have gotten through. It's not the way we've spent money only. It's not just the inflation. It's not what we're doing to our children in schools that we're forcing upon them. It's all of it. This is not the America we knew and loved. This is not the America we grew up with.
Mr. Alexander, please have 30 seconds.
Sure. And you know, this constant attack on our law enforcement personnel on the southern border has to stop. They are doing a hell of a job. Pardon my choice of words. Our law enforcement brethren down and sisters down there are doing a noble job. 2 million arrests in 11 months. That is not open border. That is enforcement. And every single time that MAGA Republicans want to attack and say we have open borders and people are just flowing into our country, accusing our law enforcement personnel of not doing what they're down there to do, it's nonsense. It needs to stop immediately. All this rhetoric, I'm sorry, it looks like I'm out of time.
All right, thank you.
Can I respond to that or no?
We're going to come back to that issue later. We'll stay on this thread of really clear dichotomy on this issue. This question will go to both candidates, but to Mr. Alexander first.
How would you balance the right of all eligible citizens to vote against the concerns of some to bolster voting integrity? What practices do you support?
I believe that we get the John Lewis Voting Act through. We've agreed in that process to allow for IDs, mandatory IDs, that before you vote. That is rational. That's reasonable. But all the other things that we see states doing, particularly Georgia, where if you're standing in a long line, no one can give you food or drink, it's absolutely absurd. We have to make sure that we are not interfering with one's ability, their constitutional right, again, to cast a vote of the candidate that they choose. And it seems that when the MAGA Republicans want to lose, when they do lose on ideas, then they come with ways to prevent people from lawfully casting votes and interfere with people's constitutional right, guaranteed that they can go and vote for the person that they choose. So with respect to the laws that we currently have, I believe we continue to enforce them. And with respect to John Lewis voting rights, that's going to make it a little bit stronger, a little bit easier for people to cast a vote, but while preserving the integrity.
Mr. Van Drew.
More people voted in Georgia than ever, number one. Number two, everybody should have a picture ID. Everybody should have a signature recognition. To say that people who are minorities, whether they are Hispanics, blacks, Asians, or whatever, are not capable of having picture ID is demeaning to them, and I resent it. Number three, just to make something clear before I forget, I have the support, the official endorsement of the FOP and the PBA and the people at the border. And so the people at the border very strongly support President Trump. They in no way are getting the help that they need. It's a shame what's being done to them. They need a lot more help.
Follow-up question for Mr. Van Drew. You have hired a consultant in Atlantic City who has been accused of voter fraud. How do you square that with your position?
All I know is that he's a good man. He's an African American that works hard in Atlantic City for a lot of good causes and to help a lot of people. I know because he calls me all the time to try to help those who are underserved in Atlantic City. And yes, he also supports me. He is part of the new group increasing in size of Hispanic Americans and Black Americans who are becoming Republican Americans, and that's a good thing. So I'm proud to have the support in Atlantic City among all these different groups, and I will continue to work with them.
Okay. This question will go to Mr. Van Drew first, and I had a feeling this issue might come up again.
Yeah. Getting back to the borders. Mr. Van Drew, how do you assess our immigration situation as of today, and what policies do you advocate?
Oh, we're in a disastrous position today. We have allowed, under the Biden administration, enough people to come across the border to actually, if you put them all together, to create the 34th state of the United States. That's how many there are. Just 2 million recently. It's unbelievable. There are people coming across that are sick. People are coming across from the drug cartel. China is running all the fentanyl. There's enough fentanyl in America now, under this president, to kill every man, woman, and child 10 times over. They run the fentanyl through the drug cartels, through the border. True story. Not only that, there are people on the terrorist watch list. Not only that, these people are being flown around all around the country, being relocated by our government and your tax dollars. And they are being also taken around by motor transportation. They are being fed, taken care of through their health, through a health system. They are being given everything they need, including, we're so worried about baby formula. They're the only ones that are fully stocked with it, and I could tell you a lot more. We should have a plan. We could do much better.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander.
Rebuild the wall, for one thing.
Mr.
Rebuild the
Alexander,
wall.
your position on immigration.
Clearly, facts matter. And here we're a little lacking in some facts. So let me give you a few. Immigration is our biggest problem with immigration is through our visa program. Twice the number of people are here illegally on visas than come across the southern border. Twice. Whenever we hear this nonsense about the southern border, it's a racist dog whistle about brown people fleeing crime, drugs, drug cartels, and wars in their country. The hard facts are this, that the Border Patrol agents have arrested 2 million people in 11 months. One. Two, if anybody's here on a watch list and we know about it, then we must have arrested them. Otherwise, we wouldn't know about it. Therefore, facts matter. And when we talk about people coming in on visa programs, 1993, this country was attacked by people here who were here illegally on visas. On September 11th, this country was attacked by people who were here on visas, not people coming across the southern border. Let's get real about this. Let's look at where the real problem is. And I guarantee you the MAGA Republicans don't want to look at this because the people coming in on visas look a lot like them, and they don't want to say that they're the problem.
Let's stick with this issue a little while longer with a follow-up question starting with Mr. Van
Can I
Drew.
respond to that? You said we
Well,
have time to
let's
respond.
hear the follow-up question, and
Yeah.
feel free to answer.
Okay, a follow-up question for both candidates. Do you support a path for citizenship for roughly 11 million immigrants who are here in this country without permission, especially the dreamers? Mr. Van Drew, go ahead.
So this is a process. I support a process in which people learn about America, where they learn about what our flag and our culture is like, where they get educated to what's going on, where they get on the back of the line because they came here illegally, but can go through a process. Not everybody who's come over, but the people who have lived here many years, particularly the dreamers, could go through that process and become legal citizens. But what I also want to say is, I don't know what a racist dog whistle is, but I sure don't have one. I don't have one.
Mr. Alexander.
With respect to the dreamers and the people who've come here illegally, I agree actually with Mr. Van Drew that they should go through a process and not be granted automatic legal status. But that doesn't mean that they're here and they're draining from our society. In fact, because they don't have Social Security IDs and such, they are contributing by way of being taxpayers without being able to benefit from the resources. So I absolutely believe that we could set up a program, a system, that if you've been here for X number of years, perhaps even a decade or more, without having any run-ins with law enforcement, you've been a productive member of the society, we should put you on a legal pathway to citizenship. With respect to the dreamers, absolutely. They did not come here on their own. They were brought here by their parents. We should not punish them. We should take care of that issue and should have taken care of that issue long ago. So I'm 100% in favor of setting up a system that doesn't necessarily reward people for breaking our laws, but when they're here for a considerable period of time and they haven't broken our laws anymore, then we should get them on a pathway to legal citizenship.
Thank you. This next question will go to Mr. Alexander first.
Mr. Alexander, what is your position on whether or not abortion should be legal, and would you support or oppose a federal ban or restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
Let me work in reverse order. Absolutely not. I would never support a ban on a woman's rights. And here's the thing. I'm a man. I will never have to face that hard choice that women must make when they decide that they want to terminate a pregnancy or should they terminate a pregnancy. I'll never have to go through that. So I don't have a position on whether or not a woman should do or not do with her body. My issue with this Dobbs decision is that it tears at the fabric of our Constitution. It says to women, you are lesser than. And the last time we saw something like that happen was in the Dred Scott decision, when that Supreme Court said to people who look like me, you are lesser than. You're not afforded the full protection of the Constitution. Here, the Constitution is designed to protect us from government. And the court has said, not you women, we're going to allow the governments of the states to come in and decide what you can and cannot do with your body. That's something I cannot stand for. I will fight every single time and support every single bill, and I'll write my own, if necessary, to make sure we reverse that nonsense.
Mr. Vandrew, your position.
So, let me say, personally, I'm pro-life, but it's more than that. What this is also about is what's going on in many areas as far as abortion not being in the first few months. There are many people out there and many people in our country who actually believe abortion should be allowed in the first few months, but do not believe that it should be all the way till 9 months and even beyond. Whether you realize it or not, in New Jersey, and the bill, I was in Congress, and we voted on a bill that I did not vote for that allowed abortion till 9 months. That's wrong. That's infanticide, however you feel on the issue. Yes, I am pro-life, but however you feel on the issue, that's wrong, and that's where we have gone, and that's considered abortion of choice. And in New Jersey, nothing's going to really change anyhow. It's going to be the same. But the bottom line is that we really have to try to do what is right by the people and by our children.
May I follow up to that?
30 seconds.
So with respect to whatever that is about having abortions at 9 months, physicians are charged with doing no harm, plain and simple. And whatever, when a woman who has a pregnancy that unfortunately is a miscarriage, and she can't go and have that stillborn child removed from her womb because the state doesn't allow it, that's a travesty. That's a travesty. And let me tell you something about New Jersey. We're always an election away from being a different kind of state. So we can't take anything for granted.
Mr. Vandrew, would you like 30 seconds?
Yes, I would like 30 seconds. That's not what this is about. That would
Absolutely
is
is
still
about that.
allowed.
Please.
Abortion on demand, when you hear that, means that you can have abortion at any stage of the pregnancy, period. Let's not change what the definition is. Let's not try to sugarcoat it. Let's not make it something else. As somebody told me from one of the organizations when I spoke to them, they said, I believe, they're a different organization, that I should be able to get an abortion anytime, any place, at any stage of pregnancy. That's what it is.
We have a somewhat related question from Mr. Huber, and this will go to Mr. Vandrew first.
The Supreme Court found the U.S. Constitution contains no explicit right to an abortion. Some fear the same logic could be used to overturn gay rights, gay marriage, and even contraception. How would you vote on a bill to preserve those rights in federal law?
Well, already on the gay rights bill, because, see, I respect the Supreme Court. They make a decision whether I agree with it or not. It is the Supreme Court of the United States. They said that gay marriage was allowable and should be. And so I said the issue was done. That issue is over, and we have to just abide by the Supreme Court ruling. And I'm sorry, the second part of your question was?
How would you vote on a bill to preserve those rights
We already
into
had
federal
that,
law?
to codify. We already did
codify.
that, yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Alexander.
Sure. And let me just say, disagreeing with the Supreme Court is not disrespecting the Supreme Court. I'm a lawyer. I fight to preserve people's rights. I'm a civil rights attorney. And the court got Dobbs wrong, plain and simple. The Ninth Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, those amendments would guarantee a woman the right to choose what she decides to do with her body. And for 50 years, the court agreed with that. So when we say that the court, we must agree or respect the court, Yeah, we respect the court when the court upholds the Constitution. And when they don't, then we criticize the court. And I would support any bill that would protect rights, fundamental rights, as expressed in the Ninth Amendment, to make sure that people have the right to marry who they want to marry, that they have the right to decide what they want to do with their body. They have the right to decide when and if they should get pregnant, and that the court should not allow states and governments to come into the bedroom to make any form of decision for anyone.
Okay, let's shift gears with a question from Mr. Hughes to Mr. Alexander to start.
Mr. Alexander, what law enforcement policies or reforms, if any, are needed to address crime in this age?
Part of the reason why I got started in this process is because I saw the travesty of Derek Chauvin murdering George Floyd for all the world to see. And the biggest problem I had, aside from the fact he was murdering someone with a badge on, was that he was 19 years on the job, and he was training 2 new officers that day. That is a dysfunctional norm embedded in that particular department that has to change. So I immediately set pen to paper. I wrote a training reform plan. It's comprehensive, but I will tell you this key piece of it. Before we give a single law enforcement officer, brand new officer, the power of the badge and gun, they must demonstrate a commitment to community, that they go and they do community service for at least a year before being eligible to be a police officer in the community they want to serve. That way, we know that those officers, those recruits, know the community, they know the people in the community before they even start the process of becoming a police officer.
Okay, Mr. Andrew.
I'm not a police officer, which is kind of, I guess, quizzical here because I got the support of the FOP and the PBA. There was a reason for that. Mr. Alexander might not say that he has, been one who believes in redefining or demeaning or diminishing or defunding the police, but his organization and all the people around it and behind it have. That's why we can't get police to even apply anymore. The numbers have gone way down. We've actually had to reduce the standards for both the police and, by the way, the military. The numbers have gone way down. I will stand by our men and women in blue no matter what. Now, that doesn't mean they never make a mistake. Just I'm a dentist. I know dentists that make mistakes and do things that are wrong, and they should receive a punishment. But the bottom line is the majority of our men and women of blue, whatever race, color, or creed they are doing a great job. God help them for what they're going through.
Mr. Alexander, would you like to
Sure,
respond?
absolutely.
30
Thank
seconds.
you. And I agree with Mr. Van Drew that the vast majority of law enforcement personnel are good, honorable people. I was a police officer for 27 years. My mother was a correctional officer retired. My daughter was a police officer. We were 3 generations in our family. And the reality for law enforcement is that we have to redefine the way we interact with the community. The recruitment issues is because young people don't want to be party to this. The recruitment issue isn't because, I can't beat anybody up anymore, so I don't want to be a police. No, it's because they don't want the headache and the hassle of doing a job that is under criticism and that the job isn't doing enough to correct itself.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Huber, this question will start with Mr. Van Drew.
Inflation is making gas and groceries unaffordable to many. It's considered a key issue in the midterm elections. What can Congress or the president do to affect these large-scale economic trends?
When you all go home tonight, you should write an email to President Biden and the majority party in Congress and the majority party in Senate and thank them for all the high prices you're paying. It's everything they did. We said it was going to happen all along. What do? Spend money like crazy. Trillions of dollars of debt, trillions of dollars of spending, and so much of it on woke nonsense, on things that weren't important and weren't really good. What did? We didn't allow our production of oil, of gas, of natural gas, which is still very clean and still something that we're going to need for a good number of years, regardless of what anybody says. So then we had to go over to Iran and to other countries and beg. We literally, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, because we didn't have our own natural resources. 2 years ago, number 1 in energy. Now we're in big, deep trouble. All of that causes problems. And the bottom line is we have supply chain problems, and China controls everything, and we have to beg them for every single product we get, including the medications and drugs. They make 90% of it. That's got to stop.
Thank
And
you,
it was stopping.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Alexander, your position on inflation and how to tame it.
Yeah, once again, facts matter. And the reality here is that inflation is a worldwide phenomenon. It's hurting everywhere. But that doesn't mean that America can't be the leaders that we are. That America can't come up with solutions to help Americans get through this cycle, this economic cycle that is devastating to everyone, myself included. So what can we do? Well, we can help lower the gas prices. And one of the things that the president did was he released some of the strategic oil reserve. But I will caution that he didn't go far enough. In addition to doing that, he should have made significant investments. And by the way, I have to change my stump speech to this, because as of today, he's pledged significant investments in battery technology. It made it easier for people to buy electric vehicles, including used electric vehicles. So the reality here is, yes, inflation is as a result of the supply chain issue and the war between Russia and Ukraine that has dramatically affected prices globally. But that doesn't mean that America can't be the leaders who we are, and every single member in Congress should be fighting for ways to reduce the cost for us every single day, and instead of sitting on our hands and complaining about everything, do something.
Okay. Mr. Hughes, would you pose a question for Mr. Alexander? And
Yes.
This will go to both candidates.
Yes, Mr. Alexander. District 2 in most of South Jersey has suffered from higher poverty and unemployment rates than most of the rest of the state. That has gone on for years. Why don't things ever change here, and what steps can you do as a congressman to help change those things?
We haven't had anybody champion for us in Washington in decades. We did for about 11 months, and then we went right back to the same old Republican representation. And the reality here is that we have to be able to target and tag resources to bring to South Jersey by way of the infrastructure, bipartisan infrastructure that my opponent actually voted for, is a great way for us to bring resources to our district to employ people, to rebuild our airport, to rebuild our roads, our bridges, to invest and dredge our ports, to put people to work, to create manufacturing opportunities, to connect Atlantic City International Airport to Atlantic City. These are the things that a representative should be fighting for every single day, to bring resources home, to make it work for us. And why? We have 12 congressional districts in the state. 10 of them are Democrats north of us, 2 are Republicans. And when you look at our district, we have been under Republican control for decades, and that's why we're lagging, because we don't have representation fighting for the people.
Mr. Vander, I'm going to let you respond. This issue of inflation and economic concerns is really polling at the top of all these surveys about the election. What do you have to say about that?
Well, what I have to say is, I was real concerned about it as well, so I worked hard. I'm on the Transportation Committee, worked in a bipartisan way, worked with folks. I'm proud to say to you that we set a record this year. I brought in $500 million worth of projects, bridge repairs, new roads, Atlantic Avenue. I won't go through all of them. We don't nearly have the time. But whatever it was Salem County, we are dredging it already. We're already into the process. The money is in place. Morris River, the mouth of the Morris River, we are dredging. They waited for 25 years. Nobody got it done. I did. The FAA, they were going to break up and to multiple entities and close most of what we know. I fought for it like crazy. We were able to save the FAA, and it's here now. That's over 600 jobs. The Vineland Developmental Center, when I fought for that, 1,500 jobs, and it was going to be taken away. So we do have to work on a lot. I have a plan as well. Don't have time. The thing says stop, I got to stop. But we've been working hard.
Can I
Mr.
respond?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And I'll give Mr. Van Drew credit that he did vote for the bipartisan infrastructure. And then he was called a rhino by the former president.
No, I wasn't.
And was one of the 13 who the president said they should be primaried. And then next thing you know, he's being endorsed by the former president. So what does that mean to the infrastructure? Well, when the appropriations funding came around for 2023, Mr. Van Drew voted against it. The same program that he's taking credit for getting money for, he voted against funding it in 2023. Facts matter, folks. We have to talk about, it gets serious about repairing the infrastructure in CD-2 to make our community strong like the rest of the state.
Facts do matter. So we're going to hear this over and over again. Facts do matter. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you the facts. Every single one of them. And sometimes people don't want to hear the facts. No, sometimes folks, and again, the majority party and the president, he has his facts. When he eats his ice cream cone and tells you the economy's great and there really wasn't any inflation problem, and then the inflation was going to be over, and then it was back again, and it was going to be over again, and now we know it's really bad and it's here. Facts do matter. Look up the facts. Read the facts. Feel the facts when you go to the store, because you can. See it when you see your paycheck that doesn't cover what you're trying to buy. Facts do matter. So let's really talk about facts and what is going on in our country and how we have to get back to making it the America that we know and love.
All right, why don't we move on to a new issue? And Mr. Hughes, this will go to Mr. Van Drew first.
Mr. Van Drew, this isn't a federal issue, but your voters care deeply about it and your opinions on it as a national leader. Many states have banned the teaching of racial history, sexuality, gender issues in what some consider controversial books. Where is the appropriate middle ground between the parents' rights and their concerns about curriculum and educational independence?
Being a parent is a serious thing, and it's important, and I have a bill, My Child, My Choice. I definitely think that you have to have a voice in your children's education, especially when we decide in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade that we're going to teach them about masturbation, teach them that they can be someone, a male, a female, or anything in between, teach them that they can do these things without speaking to their parents. This is all fact. Facts matter. Let's talk about the facts, okay? It's wrong, it's bad, and it's hurting our children, and it's hurting our country. In the later grades, they're taught all kinds of other things, including in one textbook, God forbid, facts matter, so you're going to hear the facts. They describe how semen tastes. That's in textbooks. Facts matter. So you really want to know the facts? They're not pretty. What we're doing to our country isn't pretty. I believe that we should teach about our great African American heroes and our great white heroes and our great Asian heroes and our great men and our great women, all of them. But don't distort history and change it just to get your woke type of philosophy pushed across.
Thank you.
It's the wrong thing to do.
Mr. Alexander,
Wow. So
please, I want to hear this.
it's absolutely wrong to assume that sexual identity is a choice. It is not. It is who you are. And as a proud parent of a member of the LGBTQ community, I can tell you that it is not a choice. And with respect to what's being taught in school, the movement was to teach actual history, real history, complete history, not the whitewash history that we've been all taught, everyone in this room and beyond, who have been taught for decades, if not since organized education. It's time to teach the truth. And the response to that was, oh, we got to ban CRT. It was never being taught in school, plain and simple. Gender identity, the bill that the congressman referred to, New Jersey already allows parents to opt out. It's unnecessary. And the reality here is parents have choice. You're right, it is not a federal issue. But as a parent and as a citizen of New Jersey, I want to make sure that history is being taught correctly and that parents have a choice whether or not they want to have their children participate in gender identity education.
All right, we have a lot of issues to get to. Let's try to move on to something from Mr. Huber.
Mr. Alexander, the Inflation Reduction Act has done little to reduce inflation, but contains spending on a range of issues, including climate change and health care. Do you think the level of federal spending the Democrats have supported is helping or hurting the economy?
I believe that the response of the government with respect to the Inflation Reduction Act is to show that we're trying to do what we can do to help people with respect to capping the cost of prescription drugs, capping the cost of insulin for the seniors, by the way, capping the cost of insulin. The programs that are put in place are to respond to the crisis that we're in, and we have to come up with something. Again, it is not an option, folks, to sit on your hands and to do nothing, and then go on Fox News and complain how terrible America is. America is great. It has always been great. And the reason it's great is because when we're in a crisis, we get our heads together and we figure it out. The Inflation Reduction Act was a response to a crisis. Is it the best? No. Is it things that I would have liked to have seen? No, we could have done more. Again, as I talked about earlier, with respect to moving us away from fossil fuel dependency. But it is a better option to doing nothing. And we keep waiting for the perfect bill or the perfect response when we have to take action immediately.
Mr. Van Drew, we have a slightly tweaked version for you, please.
This question comes.
Do I respond to that?
You can respond to both that and this. We want to mix in this question with it.
Okay.
This question comes from a Press of Atlantic City reader.
Doing double duty here. All right.
This question comes from a Press of Atlantic City reader for Mr. Van Drew. As a senior citizen, I would like you to explain your vote against the cap on the price of insulin for seniors and authorizing Medicare to negotiate the cost of drugs in the recent Inflation Reduction Act.
They were, real quickly, they were both shell games. So yeah, they put the cap on the copay, but still allowed any increase in premiums for both private insurance or Medicare. So it was a real neat trick, and it was actually a pharma bill. And why the hell do you think pharma supported it? Because it was a pharma bill. It wasn't something that really, it did a cap here and an increase over here. Secondly, the Inflation Reduction Act is the Inflation Creation Taxation Act. Let me tell you, that is a bad piece of legislation. Everybody think we need more IRS agents, 87,000 more IRS agents on the street. They're going to go after, they say, millionaires and billionaires. There aren't enough of them. They're going after you. If you took all the IRS agents that are out there now, put them all together, there's not one sports stadium, professional sports stadium, that could hold them all. We don't need more IRS agents. We need a streamlined system, and we need a better government that works. And again, I'm out of time, but that's the truth about that bill. By the way, more new taxes in the bill. More taxes, more inflation.
We'll stick with this for a moment. 30
Sure.
seconds, please.
And let's talk about the taxes, because the bill does not tax anybody making under $400,000 a year. The IRS agents are going after people who are dodging their taxes over $400,000 a year, and corporations. That's what they're intended to do. We can't do anything, folks. We can't have a military, we can't have roads, we can't have bridges, we can't have a government without tax revenue. But the reality here is people like me and like many of you, we're the ones footing the bill. The middle class, we're covering the cost of the government, while the rich and corporations are getting a free ride. So in that regard, the act got it right, and they should go after these people who have been dodging their responsibility.
They're going after you. I guarantee it every time. We're going to tax the rich. We're going to tax the rich. I know some rich people, they seem fine, but I know a lot of construction workers, middle-class people, teachers, go across the board. People who are middle-income people are getting hit harder than they ever did before. We don't need 87,000 more IRS agents. One of the first things we're going to do is get rid of them.
Thank you. This next question will go to Mr. Van Drew first.
Mr. Van Drew, do you support or oppose the current proposal to forgive student loans?
I love students, man. I love learning, and I love, everything about it. I've certainly spent a lot of years in school myself, had student loans, worked multiple jobs to pay them back. My parents squeezed and worked to help me, whether it was going through dental school, whether it was going through college, or whether it was even when I was doing my residency. But here's the bottom line. A lot of all you already paid for your kids. A lot of kids have already worked their butts off at second and third jobs to try to make it through school, and they do, and now they're going to have to pay again. But here's the real deal. Facts matter. You want to know the facts? The facts are the student loans that we're paying off are mostly for wealthier people because they're the ones that have the bigger loans and are going to graduate schools, medical, etc., and they have the bigger loans that are going to be the $10,000 is going to be used for. So it's not just helping the average guy. This is always like a wolf in sheep's clothing, as they say. When you really dig down and find out, you're going to be paying again. Keep working. Keep working. I don't care what your age is. Keep working because you're going to be paying the taxes.
Mr. Alexander, your take.
Sure. So the reality here, folks, is that the student loan forgiveness program is for low-income borrowers. $10,000 for the low-income borrowers, $20,000 if they actually have a Pell Grant. I don't know a graduate program in the country that you could get in for $10,000, but God bless them if they're doing it. The fact is that this is an opportunity for people to get a bit of a hand up and start building towards creating generational wealth in communities that I came from, and low-income communities. They were diverse, and there was a lot of people who just could not afford college, and yet so they had to borrow money, much like I had to do. And even as a high-income earner, I still had to borrow money to get all three of my kids through school. So the reality here is that that's not for me. This program's not intended for people like me. It's intended for low-income borrowers, people who need some help and just a little bit of a hand up so they can start building generational wealth and so they can start providing for their families sooner. And I think it's a wonderful program, and I full-heartedly support it.
Thank you. Our next question is about an issue that is near and dear to every New Jersey homeowner.
Mr. Alexander, property taxes are usually a state and local issue, but New Jersey taxpayers were affected by the 2017 Republican tax cut that capped federal property tax deductions. Where do you stand on this issue?
I want to be real clear. We have to return the SALT tax credit. We have to, in New Jersey, we are the highest taxed per capita in the nation. And incidentally, folks, we send $25 billion of our tax dollars to the federal government, but we don't get back. For every $1 we send, we get 73 cents, which makes us dead last on the list. Dead last. Compared to Mitch McConnell's state, they get $2 for every $1 they send, or New Mexico that gets $4.34 back for every dollar they send. So we have paid our fair share. We cannot afford another tax in this state. I will never support another tax in this state. That being said, every opportunity we have to either bring money back by way of the bipartisan infrastructure or to restore our ability to write those taxes off, I'm 100% in favor of. It's long overdue, and the big tax break that went to the corporations was at our expense, and that was done by the former president, who Mr. Van Drew pledges undying loyalty to.
Mr. Van Drew.
Thank you. So, as soon as I can
Please,
see.
please.
Okay, thank you. I actually support SALT. That means state and local taxes. It is so you can write off your extremely high property taxes in the state of New Jersey on your federal return. I have supported that. What I thought was kind of crazy is the bill that they put forward that the Democrats couldn't even get through. They supported you all the way to paying $87,000 in property taxes. Now, you tell me anybody that's paying $80-some thousand in property taxes, they're pretty rich. So I thought that was a bit extreme and a bit too much and would have cost a lot of people a lot of money in the middle class for people who were much wealthier. And then I just heard that the Democrats don't support new taxes. The majority party doesn't support new taxes. Right after they said that they supported the bill that's called the Inflation Reduction, I call it the Inflation Creation Act, that has new taxes in it. So facts matter. Which is it?
We have time for a few more questions, and this one will go to Mr. Van Drew first.
The second district is surrounded on two sides by water, and coastal flooding is becoming increasingly worse. What have you done, or what would you do to address the situation?
Oh, it's an important issue. So I think one of the things we have to do, and there's a lot to learn here, When we do dredging, or we have various projects where they used to be called dredge spoils, they aren't anymore. They're actually called a product of the dredging. That can be used in the meadows. Scientists, EPA, DEP, environmentalists agree. That helps control the water actually coming into those areas that are sensitive. When we build, we have to build higher. We have to build with the vent systems in so the water doesn't get stuck underneath the houses, that it goes in and that it goes out at the same time, that there's an actual flow to where the water's going, so we don't have the mold issues and the other issues that are created during these really bad storms. I think that those issues are going to become more important as time goes along, because obviously our standards are higher for mold, our standards are higher for everything, and we have to do better with these issues. And we also have to keep, our people safe. And those are some of the ways, but only a few, I don't have time, that we can actually do that.
Let's hear from Mr. Alexander on the flooding issue.
Sure, and I've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of people on the coastline that have suffered tremendously from flooding and from the fact that we haven't done anything. And I'm not aware of any bills or proposals put forth by my opponent here that would help mitigate this issue. So one of the things I want to do is make sure that we get the subject matter experts to the table. We come up with the best possible plan we can come up, and then I set about trying to find the money to make it happen. I know that there's a proposal out there for flood or storm gates and some other mitigation things that can be done through New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and the Army Corps of Engineers, but I don't know if that's the best plan. So we start again, we come up with the best plan, we move with all due haste, because the storms aren't waiting for us to make up our mind. The storms aren't waiting for us to come up with a plan or a decision. We got to move quickly, and we got to help people preserve their homes. This isn't about preserving rich people's homes in fancy neighborhoods. Some people have been in these homes for decades, for generations, and I want to make sure that their homes are not lost to them.
Now, we have a quick follow-up on that very topic. Mr. Huber, would you ask it?
Would you support restricting development or rebuilding along the ocean?
And let's go to Mr. Van Drew first, since he started.
We already do. I mean, there's CAFRA, there's a host of regulations and a tremendous amount of red tape to build. So I wouldn't, by restrict, I think you're saying stop. If you're saying restrict, we do, to a great degree. It's a complaint you hear about a lot, because once again, it's only supposed to hurt developers, but half the time I'm talking to somebody, it's somebody who wants to build a deck on the back of their house and they live on one of the barrier islands. If you're going to say stop, I don't agree with that. It would decimate our economy.
And I believe that we have to get smarter, folks. As far as restricting, when we have new construction, we want to have aesthetics and we want to have all the luxuries, but it may not be capable of doing that and still keep the home from getting washed away, and then the federal flood insurance has to come in and pay for its repair. I would be in favor of allowing people to continue to build, provided that they build it with the plan in mind that it could possibly be flooded, until we come together with ways to mitigate the flooding, if possible. And I don't even know that until we get to the table with our subject matter experts to determine that. So the reality here is, it may not appear and be what we see today. The reality we have to accept is that we can't keep paying for or subsidizing federal flood insurance and allowing people to keep building in the same areas without making significant changes. You want to make the changes, you want to live there, then we got your back.
Okay, we're nearing the finish line. We're going to see if we can squeeze two more in quickly. This one goes to Mr. Alexander first.
Mr. Alexander, President Biden's recent pardon of people convicted of marijuana possession has spurred calls to downgrade the offense on a federal level. Whether it's for health, economic, or social justice reasons, where do you stand on decriminalizing marijuana?
Okay, 1 minute, here we go. We have to decriminalize marijuana on a federal level. In doing so, we're going to get people, nonviolent people who were never attacked, the so-called war on drugs. It was a war on poverty. So we get those people out of prison, we decriminalize them. The president's on the right track with that, but he has to do it by repealing the code. 2, we allow banks and people who run dispensaries to use federal banks to store the money. A myriad of reasons why, from a law enforcement standpoint, that money belongs in banks, not in armored car services or other security things. 3, then, and this is where I'll eat my words about no new tax. Here's a new tax that I would be in favor of. Just like we tax cigarettes in this country and we tax certain sales on a federal level, I'd be in favor of imposing a federal tax on the sales of marijuana, but by law, every single penny must go to our pre-K through 12 in the states that allow dispensaries so that we could take care of our educators, we stop demonizing them, and we support them in every possible way. We build and take that burden off our state tax and our county tax, property taxes, so that we can really have a windfall of cash through the sale of marijuana, because laws or no law, people are still buying it and they're still using it.
Mr. Vanderohe.
Whether you're going to make it legal or not is up to each individual state. Some states like New Jersey felt very comfortable with that and wanted to do it, and they did, and that's fine. I believe that medical marijuana should definitely not be decriminalized in any way anywhere in the country. So I would be in favor of decriminalizing completely medical marijuana. In general, I am pro decriminalizing marijuana, but I'll tell you one thing. Here we go again, the tax man. Now we got 2 taxes that we support, but we weren't supporting any before. Now this tax, you increase those taxes too much, what's going to happen out in the street? People on the street, are they going to buy the real expensive products that are being sold in the authorized store?
Yes.
Or are they going to go, no, they're not.
Yes, they are.
No,
Yes.
they're not. They're going to go on the street where it's half the price. And you know that because they already are. Come on.
People by nature do
we all
not
know
want to
what's
break
going
the
on.
law.
Sir.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, rich people will. Rich people will. Rich people will buy the more expensive stuff. But people in the urban areas and other areas, they're not gonna. They're gonna get the stuff they can get as cheap as they can get it.
Urban areas, he doesn't know a dog whistle. Listen, the
I know an
reality here
urban
is that
area, but I don't have a dog whistle. I'm
people
sorry.
will not break the law if they have an option.
All right, thank you. Let's do a lightning question, and then Mr. Vanderohe and then Mr. Alexander will give 1-minute closing statements. Mr. Huber, your question.
What policies and strategies do you advocate for the United States dealing with the Russia and the Ukraine as the war there enters its 8th month?
Okay, how did this all happen? 1, we have a weak president. This never would have happened previously.
Please,
Come on.
Please.
Stop. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. We have a weak president. This wouldn't have happened before. The same as the Abraham Accords existed, the same as we didn't have so many of these issues before internationally, we wouldn't have had this problem. Russia assumed that we were very weak and wouldn't do anything, or if we did do something, it wouldn't be as strong as needed. And by the way, we just did a bill, $40 billion, not that long ago, $40 billion to go to Ukraine. And then we did another bill with more money that went to Ukraine. It was, I think, 15 or 16 billion more. And before all that, we did another bill. You know what I think? I think we've got to take care of America. I think we've got to take care of our military, our veterans, our homeless people, the people who are breaking their back, working every day. Because you know who's paying for all this? It ain't the rich people. It's you. Every time you look at your paycheck and you say, where the hell is my money going? It's you, every time.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander, 1 minute.
Sure. And taking care of our veterans doesn't mean you vote against the appropriations funding for our veterans in construction and veteran affairs.
Please.
But here's the thing. I believe that we're doing it right in Ukraine, that we are not boots on the ground, that we're providing aid package because Ukraine is an important economic partner. We see the effects of Russia attacking Ukraine. That is part of our supply issues, folks. That is part of our energy problem. That is part why we have a wheat shortage in this world, not just our country, because of what Russia decided to do. So supporting Ukraine, giving them the resources where we don't have to put American soldiers at harm's way, I'm 100% in favor of it because they are attacking us economically. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. And it's a good investment to push Russia out of Ukraine and allow that sovereign nation to resume business as normal as soon as they possibly can, because that's going to help the rest of the world, particularly the United States. It cannot be hyperbole that you want to support the troops and then you stab them in the back when you vote against them for automatic VA enrollment.
Thank you.
And
Thank
so
you.
forth.
Thank you. We've run out of time for questions. We now have 1-minute closing statements from the candidates. Mr. Vandrew, would you begin?
I start?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, first of all, boy, this is going to be hard to do in a minute. I love America. America has been so good to us, so good to me. It is a land of freedom. Not perfect all the time, but we're self-correcting. We keep getting better. We keep working at it. In the last 2 years, we've literally put people in Congress, not all of them, but in the majority, a number, it's surprising, that literally hate America, that don't love this country. I spoke one time at a group, and I knew what they were when they invited me. It was fine. They were very left and very socialist. And they said, we want to hear your side of the story. And I talked about American exceptionalism and exceptionalism in general and Americanism. And they said, there is no such thing. America is no better than any other country in the world. I think that's wrong. If you want more inflation, if you want more people crossing the border illegally, if you want more Afghanistans, if you want to be short of formula, if you want literally your military to be weaker and your police to be weaker, you should vote for the other guy. You should. If you want a strong America that will survive and prevail and be the shining city and the shining beacon for all the world.
Thank you, sir.
Please vote for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Alexander, your closing statement.
Sure. Folks, America is great. And this looking backwards to make America great again is nonsense. America is great today, and our best days are in front of us. Not because of the horrors of our history, but because of the promise of who we are. We have an opportunity here. Electing me is going to bring a fighter to Congress for CD-2, who's going to advocate every single day to bring resources home to this state, to South Jersey, to make sure that the resources come to South Jersey, not go up north as they typically do, but they come here so that we can rebuild our roads, our bridges, our airport, our ports. This is our opportunity. This is our now. And when you talk about MAGA Republicans who constantly sit on their hands and do nothing, not one counter proposal, all they do is go on Fox News and say how terrible America is. Enough is enough. This is a great country today. It's going to be a better country tomorrow because we're going to work to make it better. That's what America stands for. You elect me in Congress, and I will tell you this. I will be a congressman for every single person, not Republicans, not Democrats, not independents, unaffiliates, every single person, because that's what a member is supposed to do every single day while serving.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you. I want to thank, listen, I want to thank the candidates and compliment them for an excellent airing of the issues. And I want to thank you, the audience, for allowing us to hear these positions. Thank you all, and have a good night.